You made it. You have it all, the life you want, except you're missing something. Welcome to The Guy Show, featuring the experts giving you the tips, tricks, and tutelage in wellness, lifestyle, and all things guy, and for the gals that love them. We're here to answer your questions and the things you want to know about. Welcome to The Guy Show.
On this episode of The Guy Show, we have Dr. Joan Rosenberg, creator of Emotional Mastery and Emotional Mastery Training. She's a highly regarded expert psychologist, master clinician, trainer, and consultant. As a cutting-edge psychologist who is known as an innovative thinker, trainer, and speaker, Joan has shared her life-changing ideas and models for emotional mastery, change, and personal growth in professional and educational seminars, psychotherapy sessions, and graduate psychology teaching. Today, we're talking about her brand new book, 90 Seconds to a Life You Love, How to Master Your Difficult Feelings to Cultivate Lasting Confidence, Resilience, and Authenticity. Joan goes through her 8 emotions and simple steps to really conquer all your issues within 90 seconds.
Well, welcome to the show, Dr. Joan Rosenberg.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jerry Bailey.
We were laughing a ton before the show here, and I almost couldn't go on because I was laughing too hard. But your new book, 90 Seconds to a Life You Love, How to Master Your Difficult Feelings to Cultivate Lasting Confidence, Resilience, and Authenticity, just came out. And it's on my nightstand. I'm starting to read it now, and I'm super excited about it. This is a culmination of your work, from my understanding, and from you are my only repeat guest, and you are my only three-peat guest on the show.
Awesome. Well, then I want to keep coming back for more. Awesome. Yeah.
We'll just do us on shows all the time.
Yeah, there you go.
So you worked on this book for a while. It just came out in February here.
Yeah, no, it actually is a compilation of 25 years of my work, at least. And the books first started being written 10 years ago. So it's been a journey.
To say the least, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and to culminate 25 years basically in the 90 seconds is pretty amazing.
Yes. That's what it takes. Bam.
Yeah. It was like 25 years. Really, it was only about 90 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. It's true.
But your prior books, everything you've done is just amazing. It's helped so many people. It's helped myself and my wife and our relationship. And I've had you on the show helping guys with their mentality. What does it take to develop or feel confident? Because that's a big.
Jerry, great question. The key here is that people can be confident in a domain, in a particular area of their life, mm-hmm. but that kind of confidence doesn't necessarily cut across the whole of their life. Mm-hmm. And the way I think of confidence is that it's the deep sense that you can handle the emotional outcome of whatever you need to face or whatever you pursue. Mm-hmm.
That's huge. I think, definitely. I think it's that outcome of what you're looking for is what drives us. And then are we, like you just said, are we ready for that when it does happen?
Right. Think of the whole thing around risk taking, to be an entrepreneur, or to go learn a new skill, or to perform something. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is that people get, I don't know if I want to pursue that. It's like I get concerned about going and doing it. But if people stopped and thought about it, they're actually not afraid of the risk. Mm-hmm. The thing itself. What they're afraid of is the emotional outcome of pursuing the thing.
Yeah.
And people don't take themselves that one step further to realize that that's actually what their big concern is.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak on that personally myself too. It's always that fear of failure and fear of success that I talk about with clients, and even on ourselves. You have that as you're trying to build something. It's like, man, I'm so in the build and I'm loving it. And then it's like, oh crap, how's this going to turn out? Like, what if it doesn't turn out? Or what if it does turn out? What are the ramifications of each aspect there?
Exactly. Right. That's true.
So you do have an approach through this book that helps people develop the base of feeling that confidence and keep it going through that process. Like you said, what's that approach?
So, that's really tied into the name of the book. The approach is, it's kind of in a formula. A colleague of mine called it the Rosenberg reset. So I just adopted what he'd said. Mm-hmm. But the formula is 1 choice, 8 feelings, 90 seconds. Mm. And before I walk everybody through that, it's for that. Think of that as really that's the thing that's going to help me be able to handle my unpleasant feelings. Mm-hmm. So the one choice is choosing into awareness. So it's being aware of and in touch with as much of your moment-to-moment experience as possible, mm-hmm. as opposed to avoidance.
Right.
most of us get into distraction or disconnection. So whether we're, for guys, it's often looking at pornography or it's sex. For women, it's often shopping or it's food, or men use food too. It could be social media. I mean, I can go on and on. There's probably about 30 different things that I talk about, but those are all the different ways we avoid. And even having feelings about feelings is a distraction. Right. So if I'm angry that I'm sad,
right,
that's a distraction.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. So what I want people to do is to choose into the awareness as opposed to the avoidance.
Yeah, it's like I'm emotional about being emotional.
Right. Distraction. Yes.
Yeah.
Then the second part is to be able to deal with 8 unpleasant feelings. That's it. That's all I'm talking about. So it's sadness, shame, helplessness, anger, vulnerability, embarrassment, disappointment, and frustration. And somebody's going to go, yeah, why those 8? How come fear's not there? I mean, there's lots of questions about it. And it's those 8 because those are the most common feeling outcomes of things not turning out the way we need or the way that we want. Yeah.
And fear, like you just said, fear, it's an emotion based on one of those 8 things, really.
Yeah, and when I think about fear, I want people to start using fear in the way it was actually, the way how it's defined, which is danger in the moment right now.
Yeah.
And so if I'm not in danger, my preference is people stop using the word fear.
Good call. That's right. Don't use fear unless you're in danger.
Right. It's like partly because it activates that response in our body, even by use of the language.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That fight or flight, that stress response.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, I fear public speaking. Well, no, you don't fear public speaking. You're not in danger, really. What you don't want to experience is those feeling outcomes that I just talked about. That's why you don't like public speaking.
Right. I always, when people ask me about like, how do you speak so well in front of a group, in front of an audience or things like that, I always say, they never know what I'm going to say anyways, so why worry about it?
Oh, great response. Nice.
They have no idea. They have an idea because they're there for a specific reason, but they have really no idea what I'm going to say. So they don't have an expectation of anything. So you're just delivering what your talk is and it takes that fear, that lack of fear, it takes that emotion away from it.
Right. That's cool. Nice. Nicely done. And then the 90 seconds piece is that when the neuroscience, all the neuroscience findings started to come out, Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor made an observation. She's the woman who wrote the book, My Stroke of Insight, and a Harvard-trained neuroscientist, made an observation that when a feeling gets triggered, there's a rush of biochemicals into our bloodstream that activate bodily sensations. And then those same biochemicals flush out of our bloodstream in roughly 90 seconds. But what the key is here, because I wrestled with the question, why is it so difficult, or what makes it so difficult for most of us, to experience unpleasant feelings? And what I realized after kind of reading that was, and having the other neuroscience findings around to look at, is that if we come to know what we feel emotionally in our body first, and there's this intense rush of biochemicals that activate those bodily sensations. So think embarrassment, and you get heat of the chest, or your face gets red, and there's heat. You can feel the heat of that. Or you get angry, and you're clenching your fists, or jaw gets tight, or you stop breathing, or sadness, this heaviness of the chest. I mean, you can think of however it lands for you, because it's unique to every individual. Then what I realized is that it's not that we don't want to feel the whole range of what we're feeling. We actually don't want to feel the bodily sensations that help us know what we're feeling. And if we understood that all we had to do was to ride bodily sensation waves, and those waves, each one of those waves wasn't going to last more than 90 seconds, then we could actually stay present to the feeling. We could stay in the awareness. So that's the method is really contained in the title of the book, and the focus of the book is how to then translate these 8 unpleasant feelings into confidence, into resilience, and then into authenticity.
And you talked about emotional strength there, and that's such a huge part of confidence. what goes, I mean, so many people have an issue with that, but what goes into developing that emotional strength for a person?
You know what? You're going to love this, Jerry, because this is going to be partly because it's going to challenge. It's going to challenge not just I think a male point of view around this, but it's also going to challenge oftentimes a women's point of view, depending on how we were all raised. And that is, there's two parts to being emotionally strong. One is being capable, and the other is being resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
So think capability. I can handle the emotional outcome of whatever I pursue. So the capability, what I realize is that people don't feel capable in life until they can manage those 8 unpleasant feelings comfortably well.
Mm-hmm.
So you see yourself as, I've got this, then I can go pursue whatever I want, because I know that the emotional outcome, I've already got it, squared away. I know the emotional outcome is going to be one or more of those 8 unpleasant feelings. If I'm willing to face them, then I can go pursue whatever I want.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a huge thing. If we're willing to face them, I think that's such a huge thing.
Right.
So that's where the book comes into that play, and your process that comes into play is developing that to be able to embrace that aspect of, like, I know it's going to be one of these things, so let's just get it done.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And then the second part of it is being resourceful, and that has to do actually with being willing to lean on people, to accept the dependent side of our nature. Because we're both. It's not one or the other in life. It's both. It's being able to be independent and pursue things we want, and it's also our ability to lean on others. It puts us in a state of vulnerability. Okay, who cares? But it's like, stay present to that, and we're going to get greater benefit. So that means if I can accept that side of my nature that needs to lean on others, then I can acknowledge my needs and limitations. And what's more is I can go ask for help, which puts asking for help squarely in the zone of part of emotional strength.
Yeah. As for guys, that's a huge thing, because we're taught from an early age to be that self-sufficient. Don't lean, you can get through this, fight through it, do that process. And it's so hard. I know with my boys, it's so hard because it's things I was taught too, but it's so hard to be like, hey, let's try to break that cycle. But it's so easy to fall into what you know and learned in that process. But it's such a good thing that guys need to do is be able to have that group of guys that you can lean on, and gals too, of course, that you can lean on and be like, I'm just having such a hard time with this process, building this or whatever I'm doing. What do you guys suggest? And in one of the interviews of this is the 6th one here. You're my 6th surprise interview here for the mindset shift. Awesome. That one of the other interviews had talked about that was of being able to ask those questions, and digging deep really helps to develop the strength internally so much more too. Right.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. So it's capability and resourcefulness. It's being able to manage 8 unpleasant feelings, being able to ask for help.
So developing confidence is often counterintuitive or backwards, sometimes paradoxical through there. What do you mean by that? I mean, you have that in the book. What do you mean by that developing that confidence is paradoxical?
We think that we have confidence and then we speak up. Right? So I'm not going to speak up until I feel confident.
Right. I know nothing about that myself.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't. Yeah. You have so much difficulty with that. We'll help you with that, buddy. Just ask. And then, or we think that before we take a risk, we need to have confidence. And the truth, Jerry, is that confidence develops the other way. It's as we speak, or through speaking, and as we take risks, that's how confidence develops. So as we take action and we go do things, and before we have the confidence, and as we speak up, it's the act of doing that actually builds the confidence.
Definitely. I mean, I've seen that with my public speaking from way back in high school up through college. I used to be shy, still am a little bit, internalized and stuff.
I get that.
Go ahead.
I know. I get that.
Yeah. And so it's, it took that while, like I said, till I finally realized, and it was a college speech professor that had said that to me. He's like, nobody knows what you're going to say, so just go say it. And it was like, oh, And then so it was like that confidence point from then on. It was like, oh, I don't have to worry about all that emotional stuff of, what are they going to think? What do I look like? I'm turning red. And the process is the confidence was instilled at that point because I knew the outcome was they didn't know what it was going to say. They were going to get a good, entertaining talk, but that's what they were there for.
Yep, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Lots of people struggle with fear and anxiety, myself included within there. How can someone handle their anxiety better? Or perhaps
I do a bunch of reframes on this one. I just told you about the fear one, right? Mm-hmm. So what I think both the words fear and anxiety are misused and overused, and I would just as soon have people like ditch the words unless somebody's in danger right now in the moment, stop using the word fear.
Okay.
Right? It's like, so no fear of public speaking, no fear of success, no fear of failure. Mm-hmm. Right? There's other reactions to both of those things. Mm-hmm. And so, but the next most logical word people would use is if they're not using fear, then they'll probably want to use the word anxiety. Mm-hmm. Anxiety, if we look at the way psychology talks about it, anxiety is diffuse apprehension of the future about some expected or anticipated negative event. Mm-hmm. And of course, what I add to that is negative event, negative outcome, negative or unpleasant feelings. Mm-hmm. Right? So, but if I was sitting in a room with 15 people, I'd probably get 15 different answers for what anxiety meant. Mm-hmm. And so what I realized clinically is that using that word's way too vague.
Yeah.
So I started to look at folks and say, well, if I took those words away from you, what would you really be feeling? Mm-hmm. And invariably, the next big thing that came up was feeling vulnerable. Mm. So vulnerable, like public speaking, I feel vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what people are really feeling. They're not feeling anxious. They're not feeling fear. Mm-hmm. They're feeling vulnerable. They could get hurt. Mm-hmm. More accurate word. But when you realize that, it actually changes your state.
Yeah.
And it's more manageable. Mm-hmm. And if it's not that one, then it's the other 7 feelings. So what I realized is that anxiety is a cover for the 8 unpleasant feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes sense as I think about it, biochemically, you talked about the neurochemistry, the neurobiology of it is, and when I talk with clients and patients too, the body responds with all that stuff with the stress response, with that fight or flight, followed by the cortisol within there, and then the cavalcade that occurs in the nervous system and everything from that. But all those things feed that same process, but it is however that person interprets that physiological response comes across as anxiety, bad choice, fear, bad choice, but it's one of those 8 things that you had noted that's that emotion they're bringing up.
Right. So my thing with anxiety is that going forward, again, please don't use fear if fear isn't being felt, if you're not in danger. Mm-hmm. And the other is with anxiety, go beyond that and ask yourself if it's one or more of the 8 unpleasant feelings that I talked about. Mm-hmm. So, and that invariably, that's what I found. And once people are more in touch with the real thing, that anxiety just dissipates.
Yeah. Yeah. And that builds a resilience within them.
Yes.
In that process, it can build a strong resilience and not only that developing that process there, but also throughout their life and getting stronger health-wise, physical-wise, emotional-wise through there. So, but you believe that people can learn to be more resilient from it. And what does it take to develop that resilience?
Oh, absolutely. Resilience totally is learnable or teachable. The first thing I would say is be able to manage those 8 unpleasant feelings. The second I would say in terms of resilience is be willing to ask for help. Mm-hmm. Let yourself be resourceful. So that this is not the game of life is not to do it alone. So it's like, let yourself be resourceful and ask. And so those are 2 key things that contribute to resilience. Mm-hmm. And the greatest majority of the other ones are tied to attitude. Mm. So realizing that change is the constant, for instance, mm-hmm. or that you're going to persevere no matter what, mm-hmm. or that any life experience that you have, pleasant or unpleasant, is a learning experience for you. Mm-hmm. Faith. I can go on. There's probably, I think in the book I talk about 20 different ones.
Yeah.
But it's centered on attitude. Mm-hmm. once you can manage the feelings and once you can ask for help. The big part of the rest of it is attitude.
That's two things guys have the hardest. I mean, definitely asking for help is always a hard thing for guys to do. Like we said earlier, is that we're taught to be that self-reliant and don't rely on anybody and do everything yourself. It's very hard for us, and myself included. That my staff knows I'm notorious to do everything myself and just get out of the way because let's just get it done. But it's something to work on definitely as guys, is asking for help, asking those guys that that has the answers, have done what you are looking to do, and hey, let's go for a beer, let's go for a coffee, let's talk about it and see what it took to get you there, and use that as a model for yourself.
Let me dial it into this because I think you'll find this really interesting. That what dawned on me is that the military is the best representative of asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
So if you stop and think about it,
mm-hmm.
when any branch of the service goes into an area for the first time, so let's say it's the Marines landing or Special Forces landing, the first thing that they do, absolute first thing, is to do an assessment of their needs and their limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Why? So they can bring in other resources to make sure they're the strongest possible.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the military, which ostensibly was made up with a bunch of guys for the longest period of time, right? The first thing that they do is to assess their needs and limitations so they can ask for help. Well, then any other guy should be able to do it.
So what you're saying is,
yes.
But you nailed it on the head there. If our armed elite forces are going in and going, what do you need help with? What do we need help with? Us little peons who aren't that level of strength, so to say, should be able to, no problem, ask for that help.
Absolutely. And if you look at what they do, they always do it as team.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You are not alone. You are the whole focus. In fact, the whole focus of boot camp is about depending on the other members of the platoon or whatever they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the notion, they're trying to create a strong bonding so that people will rely on each other.
Mm-hmm.
So if men would just take a look at what happens with the military, oddly enough, the military as a model of our some of the best of our human nature, mm-hmm. in terms of relying on each other and asking for help. It's mm-hmm. like game changer.
There, yeah, exactly. I never thought of it that way. That's such a opportune way to look at it. Be like, hey, you're not alone. Like, they build that team around you to develop everything as you go along.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. But within that, a lot of times, guys, we self-criticize ourselves, and we talked about, you started that a little bit ago, that we tend to harshly self-criticize ourselves behind closed doors, not necessarily in the public view or outright with our team or with our families, our spouses are there. And that self-criticism, myself included in there, really gets in the way of pursuing our goals, our dreams, are things that we want to do, that endpoint, that, the eight emotions that block us, by that in there. What's your take on that? And of course, I know your answer is going to be the 8 things, the 90 seconds of that process there, but what's your take on that harsh self-criticism there? Like, why do we do that?
You know what? I think it is probably the most damaging thing any person can do to themselves. I really do. Hands mm-hmm. down. It is so toxic. And what I realized was that harsh self-criticism is a thought hijack of unpleasant feelings. Mm-hmm. So the key here, so if I walk us through it, mm-hmm. the key here is that we don't control that we feel or what we feel. Mm-hmm. It's a spontaneous reaction to life, right?
Right.
So it's like we have this spontaneous reaction. But once we're aware of our reaction, then we can manage it. Then we can handle it, modulate it, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. But the first reaction part of it, we're not in charge of.
Right.
So we're not in charge of that we feel or what we feel. So mm-hmm. so I have this reaction. I'm disappointed. I don't want to feel disappointed. So then what ends up happening is people often end up shifting to being harshly self-critical. Mm-hmm. And I give the best example is, and I talk about this in the book, is a guy I was working with who was working on a hard science, a chemistry dissertation. And he's talking about being frustrated, which is an experience he hates.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I hear his language shift to, I'm unworthy, I'm inadequate, and I'm undeserving.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, what just happened here? Like my head went spinning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like, how did he get from frustrated to inadequate, unworthy, and undeserving?
Mm-hmm.
And then it dawned on me, we're in charge of what we think and how we think.
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying to take over. So if you think if he's starting to like badger himself with all this harshly critical stuff,
mm-hmm.
it's going to look like the equivalent of the frustration he just felt.
Yeah.
Is this making sense?
Oh, totally.
So then what I realized is that harsh self-criticism is a thought hijack of unpleasant feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Which feelings? The 8,
mm-hmm.
right? But what people need to realize is that harsh self-criticism is not equivalent with the bad feelings. It's so much worse. It's markedly worse.
Yeah.
So that I just want to pull people out of it. And if you realize it in the moment and you realize you're shifting
mm-hmm.
to being critical of yourself, or you're in that negative talk, that smack that you say to yourself,
yeah,
then in that moment, if you can be aware of it, stop, reverse course, and go, what was I feeling that was harder for me to bear?
mm-hmm.
What was I feeling that was harder for me to know?
Yeah.
And then get to the unpleasant feeling or the unpleasant knowing. And that's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah. On the flip side of that is receiving compliments. Myself is, even though like all the different testing you do, I'm a yellow, we love compliments. We're all, all those things, why, myself included, this is really me, is like, I always joke about it, like, hey, enough about me. How about you? How do you feel about me?
Right.
As compliments, so many people push those away or really play them down, but it is important for them to really embrace those, because that helps build up that confidence a little bit more for them. So do you think the compliments are more important or just as important at reversing that self-criticism?
You know what? I think it serves probably a slightly different function, but
Okay.
Yes, I do think when I hear somebody say that they don't have much confidence,
mm-hmm.
I can make a handful of guesses about them and be pretty spot on. One is that they're harshly self-critical.
Mm-hmm.
One is that they don't handle their unpleasant feelings. 2, they might not speak up as much as they could. 3, they are harshly self-critical. And 4 is they don't accept compliments.
Mm.
And so what people don't realize is that compliments are a reflection of you back to you.
Mm.
They're a mirror. So somebody's not just like lifting up and, let me pull this compliment out of the thin air, right?
Here you go.
Yeah, exactly. Or out of the blue and go, here, let me hand this
mm-hmm.
to you, right? And
mm-hmm.
say it to you. They're complimenting because it's coming out of an engaged experience with you.
Mm-hmm.
Or something of you. Let's say you were up on stage performing,
mm-hmm.
right? Or played a great tennis match, or it doesn't matter, or music. It doesn't matter what it is. Somebody was moved
mm-hmm.
through some kind of an experience of you or about you or with you,
mm-hmm.
and then complimented you. It's a reflection of you back to you. So what ends up happening is when you dismiss them, you
mm-hmm.
don't get the chance to update your self-image.
Mm. Yeah.
And so if someone starts to receive a whole bunch of compliments that they've never seen themselves in that light,
mm-hmm.
it's like, take them in. This is now an opportunity for you to update an old view of yourself to
mm-hmm.
a new view of yourself. It's like, oh, I am who I wanted to be in that area,
mm-hmm.
right? So that's why I just think they're super important for that reason, that they make it's almost like, if you're used to working in wood, and for women, I had to change the metaphor. For women, it's the top coat on the nail polish.
Yeah.
For men, it's the varnish over the stain.
There you go.
So it's that compliments have a way of sealing in the goodness.
Right. What makes it, and this is probably like at least a 6-hour discussion, but what makes it difficult? Is it because it's that mirror of us that we're maybe not quite seeing it ourselves that makes it so hard to take those compliments in?
I think that, super question, that I think that there's a lot of things that we're socialized to not do it. Right. Don't stand out too much. Don't get conceited. Don't. In Australia, it's the tall poppy syndrome, right? Don't stand out. Bad news. You're going to get conceited. You're going to get a big head. But the truth is that when we feel good about ourselves, we actually don't act in ways that are conceited or arrogant. And if people are acting in ways that are conceited or arrogant, then they're actually feeling pretty inadequate, or they're not seeing themselves in a good light, right? I shouldn't say feeling inadequate. They're not seeing themselves in a good light. I think that what ends up happening, Jerry, is that we don't take them in, partly because we're socialized not to, and culturally not to. And I think the other thing is that sometimes we don't see ourselves in a good enough light, and then when we get compliments, they're discrepant with how we see ourselves, so that they couldn't possibly be true. Right? You're just trying to be nice, right? You don't really mean it, right? And so we find ways. In fact, I think in the book I actually I put like 20 compliment blockers as a checklist for why people dismiss compliments. So but those that they seem as ingenuine or disgenuine, and so it's like no, it's luck, it's whatever. You don't really mean it.
Yeah.
Right. So there's countless reasons.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's probably at least a 6-hour discussion on
It's true.
on how to better take compliments about yourself.
Yeah.
But as you kind of said, that assertiveness, that process through there of being out there more, speaking up, being present without the arrogance there. People are always encouraged to speak up and be assertive, but that can be, like you said, notice that there's some arrogance within that process there. But how does speaking up really help us relate to having more confidence?
You know what? I in the same way that I see compliments as kind of sealing in the confidence, I also think that our ability to speak with ease beyond. Let me frame it for a second. Backwards. At the base of everything is our capacity to deal with these 8 unpleasant feelings. Foundational. Beyond that, the single most important thing that anybody can learn how to do in life to build that confidence is to be able to speak with ease. To say what they need to say, with whom they need to say it, when they want to. But I will also put a caveat here, always with discretion and always from a place that's positive, kind, and well-intentioned. So that when we don't tell the truth of who we are and we're masking stuff, which a lot of people do, then we're not congruent. And that lack of congruence takes away our confidence.
Yeah. And people tend to see through that eventually too there, because that authenticity, that genuineness that people try to fabricate a lot of times, at first it's like, wow, that's a person really seems that way. Then over time it's like, wow, they're really not that way. You start to see erosion through there.
Right.
Process.
True. Right. And so what ends up happening is that when people, and speaking up is the first line of defense for people, right? As opposed to physical. And so if people don't speak up, they don't have that first line of defense. So then they feel more vulnerable. And they won't engage in more conversation because they don't feel like they can protect themselves. That when we do speak up, we develop the confidence. When we do speak, our words match our actions, and our words match our thoughts and feelings. That experience of congruence actually helps us feel more genuine and be more authentic. And when we tell the truth of what we're experiencing, we actually feel more alive. There's a greater sense of aliveness. And And it also creates opportunity. You know, if I wasn't willing to ask for something, or let me do it the other way. If I am willing to ask for something, there's opportunities that might unfold for me that I never knew about because I was, willing to ask. So that the ability to actually speak opens opportunity up for people. So, aliveness, opportunity, congruence, which is basically equal to confidence, right? So there's so many positive outcomes to being able to do it. That's singularly the most important thing.
Yeah, and it all, like you said, as you mentioned, you laid it out, it all lines up A to Z perfectly for who that person is, for their message, for where they come from, for their authenticity, all that aspect there creates that unification within the message of them, and that really gives them that power and that strength and empowers them through that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Super glue to confidence. Speaking up.
Nice. Dr. Joan, it's been amazing to have you on the show. Your awesome tips, tricks, and tutelage have been amazing through this show, not only this one, but our prior 2 episodes here.
Thank you, Jerry.
Why don't you highlight a few key takeaways to really help the audience help build their emotional mastery? I know, guys, we don't deal with emotion at all, but we have to. We have to deal with our emotion there. So how we can better build our emotional mastery and then also wellness for our life, too.
You know what? I probably a quick summary of a lot of the stuff we've talked about, right? Be willing to face, in whatever way you do it, those 8 unpleasant feelings. Second, be willing to speak up, but tell your truth in a positive, kind, and well-intentioned way, right? Do more of that. And that includes not the unpleasant stuff. That's part of it. It's also to be able to turn to somebody and say, I love you, I like you, I want to spend more time with you, and being vulnerable in those ways as well.
Yeah.
The third, let's drop the harsh self-criticism. And you can end it in the moment you're aware of it, just by being in touch with what was unpleasant underneath it. And let's see what the other was, start taking compliments in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All key things that we've covered in the episode. In the book, you have it there. Your 90 Seconds to a Life You Love, How to Master Your Difficult Feelings to Cultivate Lasting Confidence, Resilience, and Authenticity. Just came out. It's an amazing book. Go get it, people, on Amazon or your local bookstore. Nail it. It's going to change your life. It takes a little longer than 90 seconds to read it, but...
True.
Which is a good thing. Otherwise, it's a little flip book. So it's a great book there. Dr. Joan Rosenberg, thank you again for being on the show and enlightening us brilliant but dim guys on what we should be doing.
Brilliant and
bright. Let's put it that way. for enlightening us through there. We got to have that self-deprecation here and there. Keeps us real.
All right.
But through there again, thank you for being on the show. It's an amazing having you here. Any last little tip, trick, or tutelage?
Ooh, yeah. Okay. It's my one-liner. It's my one-liner. If you can ride one or more 90-second bodily sensation waves of one or more of 8 unpleasant feelings, you can go pursue anything you want in life.
Brilliant. And the whole time we were talking about this, what was on my mind was the Beach Boys, Catch a Wave.
There you go. Well done.
Catch a wave and you're sitting on top of the world.
Perfect. That may be my lead-in song to when I'm on stage.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well done, my musician friend.
All right. Well, thanks again for being on the show, Dr. Joan Rosenberg. We will catch you all later.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Guy Show. What do you think? Register and post your review of this episode in iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or Google Play. Also, do not forget to set the auto download feature for the show. Be sure to like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Guy Show Live. To get the most of this week's episode, be sure to check out the show notes at theguyshow.net, where you will find a free download of the tips, tricks, and tutelage from all of our guests and the host, plus many more amazing products, life-changing courses, and Guy Camp quarterly retreats that are available for your purchase.